can't believe that more planners don't do this. This little boy, this one, oh, ridiculous. So this diary has morphed from just a diary to a junk journal. Hi, Sarah here. Welcome back. This may seem like a lot of notebooks because it is. This system I've been using this past few months or this past year has been working really well for me, and I'm really excited to share what has worked for me. Before getting into these, I want to mention I will not be going over my tarot journal at all in this video because this video will be focused on just my other notebooks. I will have my tarot year in review video where I'll talk more about the tarot decks that I used and also tarot journal practices, tarot journal pages. So the tarot journal will have a place to shine in that other video, just not in this one. For the notebooks that I will be mentioning, there are two main functions that I have realized that I need from a notebook. One is to offload information, to basically get information out of my brain onto paper so that I don't have to think about it anymore, I don't have to worry about it. The other primary function of a notebook for me is to document. So things that I want to keep track of and remember and look back on and get all sentimental on. So first I'll talk about the everyday planner that I have been using and what I'm going to switch to next year. I'm going to talk about the notebooks and journals that I've been using to document things. I'll also talk about some handmade journals in the mix as well. Those will be relevant later. In addition to the documenting notebooks I have here, I will share the main documenting notebook I have, which is my freaking hunka chunka of a diary. But yeah, more on that later. And there will be timestamps, of course, so you can just skip around to the sections that you'd like. Let's get started with my offloading notebooks, my everyday planner. The first notebook in this presentation is my Hobonichi Techo. This was my first year using a Japanese planner of any sort. From someone who used to use like mainly thick journals like this, thick dot grid journals to make my own planner, switching to this kind of thin paper in this planner has been such a big change. The Techo is in Japanese a life book. So this book is not just meant to be a planner, but it can also be used to document. People have drawn in their techos, planned and sketched, documented things too. A lot of people journal in their techos as well. In the beginning of the year, my focus was on making this planner very functional, but also adding in some decor because I really like buying stickers and I needed a place to just offload all of my stickers. Throughout the year, as I got more familiar with it, more comfortable with it, I started just jotting down like things that I did during the day because it's just nice to remember, to also look back at things occasionally. But as I go through the year even more, I realized that I just look at these past pages even less. So then the function of this journal became more about just offloading information rather than writing things to remember them and parse through them again later. That is especially apparent in the past couple months, November, December. If you look at all these pages before then, they had a lot of stickers, a lot of pretty colors and different markers and pens. And then literally November, December, I got pretty tired. I felt so overwhelmed with all of my things at work and personal life. Around this time, November 15, 16, was when I actually skipped pages for the first time. And I went back not to specifically like write down what had happened in that day, but just to use these pages up to offload like anxieties and how tired I was and things like that. You can see how much more simplistic these pages became compared to all of these like colorful pages before. And it's interesting because in the past, I thought I would be scared of these blank pages, but now that it's actually happened, I realize I don't have the energy to care about these blank pages. If I have the energy to fill them out, then I will. And if I don't, I'll just keep going to the next day. That's been one of my favorite things about the Techo and why I would still use a page-a-day planner over a regular notebook. I like having special pages designated for every single day. So if I skip a day, I can just leave the page blank in case I want to go back to it and write in it later. And this month, December, I also started writing like sideways because this book was getting so chunky that I just could not always comfortably write the regular way. So I just turned the book sideways and just wrote this way. And I just found that like very comfortable and I don't know, it just shakes things up a little bit as well. There's a technique that I heard shared from writer Carol, who invented the bullet journal method. One of his videos, he talks about interstitial journaling. So he explains that oftentimes it's difficult for us to switch contexts or get our head in the game once we switch tasks because we might still be thinking about the previous task or we just haven't really primed ourselves to get ready for the next task. So in this short video, he explains that interstitial journaling, his way of daily logging, is when you're switching contexts, switching between tasks, you can check in with your journal by writing in the current time, write down what you just did and any thoughts and feelings about that, then write what you're going to do next. And then the next time I decide to check in my planner, I can just write the next time and then again offload what I just did, what I'm feeling, what I thought, any ideas, what would I do differently, whatever, and then write down what I want to do next. that concept has helped me out so much because I do keep so many thoughts and ideas and feelings in my brain. Not all of them are important. Very little of them are actually important to keep, but all of those irrelevant thoughts and feelings just keep piling up in my brain, keep going through the train station like, hey, pay attention to me. What's this? What's this? I'm still feeling this way. So now I understand that offloading is a really crucial function of this notebook for me. So that's the status update of my everyday planner, my page-a-day planner, this Hobonichi Techo. Besides offloading thoughts and feelings, this planner, of course, also helps me plan. In addition to that planning ahead, I briefly tried using this weekly planner, the Slingshot organizer. It has 7 days of the week across 2 pages. What's unique about this planner versus many other planners is that every day they write historical events that are related to revolution, social activism, and social justice. And it's cool to read all these things and know that so much has happened in the past that helped get us the rights and the society that we have today. For a while, I used this just to have an overview of the week, to see events and tasks that I needed to do during the week. I kept up with that all through September, and then I realized I just didn't need to use that anymore because it just wasn't as helpful. So I started tracking routines instead. Around this time with my therapist, I started realizing the importance of having routines. It's important for me to set up my cups of water in the beginning of the day, putting away dishes, vacuuming. I need to do that kind of stuff at the beginning of the day because in the middle of the day, I usually will not have the motivation to do it. I just want to do other things besides boring tasks like doing chores. So at this time, I started developing routines for myself. So I had like a morning routine. I had a routine to get into my work to get started with my work shift. I had a routine to take my midday break because I usually forget to eat my midnight meal. I work night shift, so usually my third meal happens around 11 or 12 at night, and I would often forget to do that. So besides having an alarm, I also had like a little checkbox here so I could check off that I actually did that routine. The routine being like step away from the computer, set the standing desk to standing position, take a walk if needed. We live in a safe area, so I don't have fears of walking around at like 11 or 12 at night. And then the fourth routine here would be the nighttime routine of like wrapping up all of my stuff and getting to bed. In addition to routines, I also tracked if I took a walk and how long I was taking walks because I was trying to get more on top of that for mental health reasons. I also tracked the meals that I ate, the things that I ate, because I wanted to be more mindful of like which days and how often am I skipping meals, not even eating any snacks. So that kind of tracking was helpful for me. I kept up with it for a while. It was also helpful because when I'm bored at work or I just feel like I want to be distracted at work, my eyes can drift over to this planner and I can just start checking things off instead of like going on my phone or opening a social media site. I kept up with this throughout September and October, and then I eventually got tired of it because it is a lot to set up and maintain every week. Plus, I was just tired of having a separate notebook to check every day. I only want to check one notebook every single day, so I just fell off of this and I haven't used this book since. I remember back in August when I made this other video, I said, oh yeah, I will definitely do this next year. And now here I am 5 months later, like I'm good. I need to have everything in one book if I'm gonna use this every day. Now, speaking of one book, I'm actually not doing Hobonichi this next year. The main reason for that is because I don't like that Hobonichi and many other planners, they will put all of the month pages at the very beginning. Okay, zoom back out a little bit. So they will put all of the month pages and the week pages in the bigger version in the very beginning. And I really, really hate this because in September, like look at these, I just did not use these pages at all. I really cannot be bothered to flip back to the very beginning to reference these pages at all. And a lot of other planners do this too, and actually that really irks me. So I heard that this planner does it differently. So this planner is called the Just Scribble planner. Their company is Just Scribble. I believe it's an independent designer really. So company, it's like a small business kind of deal. I am using a Hobonichi cover though, because I do really like their covers. I like that they have this pen loop here so I can stack like 1 or even 2 pens, and their plastic covers just make it really nice. I don't like fabric getting caught on fabric. So yes, this is the Just Scribble planner. To my knowledge, they only have one size of planner. They don't have a smaller size. Anyway, back to the topic of what I was saying about how this Techo, this Hobonichi has all the months at the beginning, right? So this Just Scribble planner, all of the month and week pages are interspersed throughout the planner. So here we are at the year pages at the beginning. They have a lot of pages as well, by the way. When I first got it, I was like so overwhelmed by all of the pages. I was like, oh my God, how am I ever going to use all of this? I sat with that anxiety for a long time and just simmering on it, just thinking about it. And I also worked through it and reminded myself that like planners are just meant to be used. They're meant to be helpful for me. If I don't use the pages, that's okay. I can just decorate them or I can just use them for brain dumps. It's okay. Anyway, so for the year pages and the quarter pages, they have a lot of pages, right? So we have like a blank page that you could use for your goals. Another blank page here. Then we have the quarterly pages. So here's quarter one. Quarter one could be goals. There's 8 boxes here. This is 3 tracker pages. So you could track different habits if you've done them every day, or track when the last time you did something was. Another blank page here. There are a lot of blank pages here, so there's a lot of paper to work with and to play with. Another quarterly page, so more trackers or more like month ahead looking pages. And then finally we're getting to the month pages. Here's the January page plus an accompanying blank page. The month layout here. More blank pages, 2 blank pages to work with. And then my favorite part, the weekly spread. And I say my favorite, referencing the fact that everything is interspersed throughout the notebook. So week 1, and then here are all the daily pages. And then week 2, and then daily pages again. Then you have February. So here's the February month pages. And then February week. And then February dailies. And then after March, we'll have the quarter 2 pages. So you have like a quarter 1 recap page here. Oh, you also have like recap pages for each month at the end of the month if you're so extra and you need that. And then quarterly pages, same as before, got the month trackers. And then going into the month and then the week pages again for the next quarter. So yeah, this is my preferred distribution because like I mentioned, I do not want to flip back to the beginning of the book to reference things. I can't believe that more planners don't do this. Maybe there are other planners out there that I'm not aware of, but I know that Just Scribble was recommended on like that one Reddit post because they still use the nice thin paper that Hobonichi and other Japanese planners use. The like Tomoe River or Sanzen paper. So yeah, this will be my new everyday planner and catch-all like offloading planner and notebook for the new year. I'm really excited to use this because there's going to be so much room for me to play with, and I'll have more opportunities to organize and also just brain dump whenever I need to. Being able to just brain dump a lot of tasks at the beginning of the week will be really helpful. Being able to brain dump like on all this real estate here on these huge pages will be helpful as well. I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to use all of these year pages for, but I am honestly not pressed about it because I've never used trackers before. And if I don't have a clear idea of what I'm going to use it for, I will probably develop the idea later on when I actually have a need for it. There's no point in trying to force myself to use these pages to have uses that I just won't have a use for. Other pages, like these quarterly goals page, for example, I don't know, I won't make too big a deal about them. Like maybe I'll write down like ideas for the quarter, but I'm really not too pressed about them at this time. Like they're going to be for fun. If I use them, I will have a use for them. And if I don't, then I will just skip them. For the weekly spread, I'm going to try time tracking again. So I've written down the timed events for the next week. And I've also written down some unscheduled events over here. I also saw an interesting reworking of the weekly spread from a YouTube channel called My Dandelion Diaries. What they do is they section out parts of the weekly spread instead of using every week completely like from start to end, I guess. For example, like how often do you really use 5 a.m. all the way till 2 a.m.? Like for me personally, I wake up at 1 p.m. So all of the time before this would be irrelevant. This week is an outlier because I don't have work this week. So I am able to have like early morning appointments. But normally when I'm in work mode, I only need 1 p.m. onward. So what My Dandelion Diaries does is they section out parts of the weekly spread to rework into their own categories and their own lists. So for me, I've taken a leaf out of that book. I've sectioned out this top part to be meals. So I, again, want to try to track the meals and the snacks that I'm eating. I also have walks, so I can actually write if I took a walk. In this corner here, I can write down like the current book I'm reading. And there is one more page to actually write down like tasks and workshop stuff throughout the week. So yeah, that's my idea for the weekly spread. I'm honestly really excited to have the weekly spread back. I didn't need it as much in the beginning of this year, but now that like I'm in a whole different phase or mindset of my life, yeah, I want the weekly spread. So that is a flip through of the Just Scribble planner. Oh, one more thing to note is that this is a pricey planner, which did contribute to my like worry when I first got it. Like, oh my God, what have I done? Why couldn't I just stick with a regular planner that I could customize? But you know, it is what it is. I've already bought it. Nowhere to go but forward. It is $60 US, and because there are so many pages, it actually comes in 2 books. So this book only has Q1, Q2, January through June. The other book has the rest of the months. I don't think I care that much about having a split book yet. I know some people do, but honestly, I don't intend for these journals to be kept much longer after I finish using them. In a few years, like we'll probably just toss these everyday planners because I really don't care to look back at these like mundane everyday things. So that's the everyday planners. And one more thing I'll talk about in this offloading section is this little boy. So I bought this little spiral bound notebook from Murphy Pines, the creator of the I'm Here Oracle. You can see their art style here. I saw on YouTube some videos about people having mini composition notebooks and they looked so cute. I was like, oh my God, mini notebooks are so adorable. What if I had one for like books I've read? What if I had one for my like Animal Crossing villagers? What if I had one to write down my distractions? I just want to have a collection of mini notebooks. So this notebook initially was intended to be like I don't know, like a book of my own affirmations. So like this is a cognitive behavioral therapy technique that my therapist and I have talked about, thought stoppage, which is when like a negative or toxic thought comes in, you basically just tell that thought stop. You don't entertain it. So I wrote like a little song that I was thinking of that was related to that thought stoppage technique. I wrote down or drew other like affirmations that were like on my mind just to get them off of my mind. So again, back to the offloading concept, right? Just offloading things into this notebook. I was initially intending for this to be like mainly an artsy notebook, and then it became more like just a chance to offload anything. Like maybe, yeah, I will use this for art like this, and maybe in the future I can just tear out these pages and keep them in my diary if I want to actually keep them. But this notebook has been most helpful as an offloading notebook, especially when I'm on the go. I really like analog journaling and note-taking. This is just so much more satisfying to me than typing digitally. So yeah, this notebook evolved from just art stuff to actually offloading things. And another main function that I used this notebook for was to write down worries so that I could just offload the worries and stop them looping around in my head. And once I write down the worry, it's often easier to write down solutions after that initial thought, that initial worry has been extracted and actually like penned down to paper. Other examples of worries were if I was going to a new event for the first time and I just had so many worries about like, am I gonna be okay? What am I gonna experience? I feel stressed because XYZ. So writing down the stress is helpful for me to process it and again, offload it so that I can look at this and be like, all right, now I'm good, now that I've like given it an outlet. It's similar to how, you might talk with your friend or your parent or your therapist about how you're stressed too. So writing things out onto here is helpful for working through and just offloading that stress. So it's not living in my brain all the time. And oftentimes I can go back and I can write a summary of what happened after the time. I feel like when you have anxiety and big stress, it can be easy to forget what it feels like to be not stressed and also forget what it feels like to be stressed. So this notebook, being able to check in and write, like just scribble in it really, like before and after, has been really helpful. One goal that I have really done better on this year has been decreasing my phone usage. I'm sure I'm not alone in saying that I used to use my phone a lot. I would use it every time I got bored. And the trouble with that is when you start going on your phone, it's hard to break away from your phone. I bring this around with me because it's the same size as my phone. It's even smaller than my phone, really. So having this pen in here, having this next to my phone, I can keep this in the same bag and it takes up like virtually the same amount of space. So now when I'm tempted to reach for my phone, whether I'm on a walk or I'm in a waiting room, I can just take some time to check in with this notebook and write down like whatever I'm thinking or feeling. Sometimes I even write down like ideas that I'm trying to get done later. Like here, I was writing down a bunch of videos that were on my mind and trying to parse through them. Besides offloading, it's also nice to just flip through and ponder the things that I noted and wrote down before. This notebook has been a really helpful replacement for my phone, and I'm looking forward to continuing like working on this new habit. All right, so those were the notebooks for offloading thoughts and information. Next, I want to talk about the notebooks for documenting stuff. So here are two notebooks, both with very different uses. This is the Yearly Collections Journal. For this notebook, I was inspired by Jashi Corinne, also on YouTube. This is basically a DIY planner or DIY notebook, really. I hesitate to use the word bullet journal because the YouTube version of bullet journal is very different from the Ryder Carroll version of bullet journal as it was intended. So I really just call this like a journal or a notebook, not a bullet journal. So the function or the purpose of this journal is to document stuff throughout the year. We've got bucket lists, future tasks. Clearly I did not use them too much, so they will be combined in the new year. This one, ridiculous. I tried keeping 24s in 2024 and I did not find it that entertaining, so I will not be doing like this specific number or count again. The idea is that you have like let's say 24 or 20 lists to keep track of in the year, and you just have like 24 of each list. I thought the alliteration 24/24s was cool, and it was pretty fun to come up with 24 ideas at the beginning of the year. But for this page, when it came down to like marking down how many I did, I could not be bothered. That was so boring for me. I can already look at these lists and see how many I accomplished. I don't need to like put a dot here as well. I don't know if it's more helpful to flip back and forth or to go through one year at a time. I think I'll just flip back and forth. It makes sense for me. In the next year, my setup was a lot simpler, first of all. I was uninterested in planning and envisioning for a while, but I did find some energy eventually. I've simplified the layout a lot, so the bucket list and the future tasks, aka want to do and would like to do, they have been consolidated into one page here. 24/24s in 2024 has just been turned into just lists. I'm not going to expect myself or track if I'm like doing 20 or 5 of them. I've actually kept a lot of the same categories: TV shows, movies, video games, music artists, and gotten rid of the ones that I just don't use enough, don't really care for. This goes back to my like documenting mindset. I have other notebooks where I can just offload information and thoughts and not worry about having to reference them. But for this notebook, I'm trying to only keep lists and ideas and information that I actually would be happy to look back at. So that was my philosophy choosing these new lists here. Savings tracker as usual, doing that again. The month pages. I had a great time the first 10 months of this year collaging photos and adding in stickers and decoration of highlights of each month. And then November, December, like I mentioned, just burnout, got tired of planning, tired of keeping up with all these journals. They were not bringing me joy. So what I finally did, I only did this just this past week for both pages here. I printed out one photo highlight of each month. I didn't even worry about writing in like any words or summary of the month, put stickers in, called it a day. So simplifying that for the next year, I'm combining all of these months into quarters. So instead of having 12 different pages here, I have 4. I'm gonna try having just one photo highlight of each month. And on this side of the page, I could just do like a quarter reflections maybe. So quarter 1 reflections, January, February, March photo, turn the page, next quarter, next photos. So yeah, another page in this yearly collections journal is this then and again page. So on the first and the last day of the year, you just write comparisons of a bunch of different things, different facts about yourself. Food obsession and recipe, tarot deck used, things like that. This page here is a letter to myself. I read this like at the beginning of the month. It was okay. I don't think it was like life-changing, but part of the joy of these journals is just a process rather than the final result. So I do have those pages again here for the new year. And that's all the pages that I've set up for this next year. And I'm sure there is room for me to add more in the notebook if I feel like it. For example, this past year, I added a page for board games and boba/macarons that I ate. I added a page for washi samples. Here's my quarter reflections and more washi and sticker samples here. Oh, and here's a page for keeping track of the mail that I sent and received this year. I definitely received and sent before that, but only in August did I start tracking it. And then this section of pages here is from the Year Compass booklet. It's a free booklet that people have made available. The website is yearcompass.com. It's just got a lot of broad questions about reflecting on this past year and looking forward to the new year. And instead of printing that out and filling it out separately, I just copied all of the prompts and did that exercise in here because I cannot be bothered to have a separate booklet. It's just easier to reference if it's all in one place. So yeah, that is a detailed look through my yearly collections journal, one of my documenting notebooks. This is another documenting notebook here. This is my Commonplace notebook, my Commonplace journal. I learned about Commonplace notebooks this year, and it's been an amazing way for me to document and also offload things that I find interesting throughout the year. The main things that I keep in here are quotes from books, excerpts from books that I find really fascinating, really sentimental, really contemplative, notes from YouTube videos, Instagram posts, sometimes collections of like TV show recommendations or my favorite movies. I did a workbook from the Thought Spot about transitions, and that workbook had a lot of great information, so I took notes on that workbook in here. That was 3 whole pages or 6 pages here. So yeah, this notebook has been a great way to offload and document more things that I find interesting. It makes me feel like I'm in school again, but I just need to learn in like a light way, not a super scheduled heavy way like I did in school. And this little notebook here is another little documenting notebook. It's got basically things that I want to remember. Some notes for reference include my astrology chart. Let's see, if we're moving, here's the addresses I need to change. Simple ways to self-regulate. This is from the Thought Spot on YouTube. ADHD affirmations. This is from Haley Honeyman on YouTube. I also wrote down a couple of therapy techniques like thought stoppage, like I mentioned earlier, ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, core values. So those are the couple of documenting notebooks. There's one more documenting notebook that I want to mention in this section, which is my huge freaking diary. But before we get into that, I want to mention a few handmade journals. They will be relevant later, I promise. So, oh my gosh, I finally got the chance to bind books for the first time this year. A local independent bookstore was having a custom journal making workshop. So my spouse and I went and learned how to bind our own journals. So this is the journal that I made myself. Ooh. This journal is made from 12 by 12 sheets of scrapbook paper, and inside it's really just computer paper / any kind of paper that you want to include. I chose blue because it's one of my favorite colors. There are a couple of things I wish had been done differently. Like I wish that there was like an edging on this here instead of the paper just being glued together. But you know what? It's the first journal and I'm really happy with it. We learned everything from how to measure and cut the cover pieces ourselves, as well as how to section out these pages, use a pamphlet stitch, a basic pamphlet stitch to bind these signatures into the book. There are 10 sheets of paper in each signature, so 10 times 3 times 4 sides per paper, that's 120 pages. So this journal will last me a while, I think. This is another handmade book, not by me, but by my sibling. They actually made this for me when I was leaving for college back in 2013. It was just sitting on my shelf for the longest time. After this custom journal making workshop, I was so fixated on the idea of junk journaling and making your own journals, and now I'm like obsessed with handmade books. So I pulled this book back out and I was determined to find a use for it. I covered over the basic cardboard cover that they put on with this like washi station print or postcard that I was gifted when I saw them at a market. This book has just regular computer paper, so it doesn't have these like different color papers. And I did rip out a couple of pages from my other notebooks so that I have like a guide for when I want to write in this. One more handmade journal, and then I'll tell you why this is all relevant, I promise. This is a junk mail envelope journal. It's so tiny, it's so cute. You can see that the envelope here is, you know, from those like junk mail envelopes. I put a signature of like 8 pages in here. I use like regular notebook paper because I have so much of this and I need to find more uses for this. And I added like half of a card on the front and on the back just for sturdiness. So yeah, that's a little notebook or little journal that I made. Now, why are these relevant, you might ask? Well, after this diary's done, I'm going to be moving into these journals instead. Oh my God, I'm so relieved to almost be done with this thing because it's so unwieldy. All right, thank you for sticking with me this far. We're just getting through this, right? This diary has been going on since December 2022. And this is how it used to look in the first 1 or even 2 years I was using it. Just straight up writing with the same basic ballpoint pens. And then last year, October 2023, I discovered that I really like stickers and deco. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna start decorating this journal so much more because I am bored with the way that I used to do it before. Like only writing out like this, it worked for me before, but now I want to do more things. From here decorating, I also started adding in like junk journal elements, tags and boarding tickets, stickers and prints and postcards that my friends sent me. Like I would add all that into here and it just makes this journal so much nicer. So this diary has morphed from just a diary to a junk journal. It's really transformed. It's got so many things in it. It's to the point that at this stage of the year, I only write mainly on this side and I just save the left side for taping down stuff because it's so hard to write on this side now that like it's as thick as this. Here's a spread, for example, of a market that I went to recently, just collecting stickers and business cards from places I thought were interesting. Washi tape samples, stickers, just slapping things in here because yeah, I've really been into the junk journaling part of YouTube. I'll add some links in the description to some channels that have been really inspirational for me in breaking out of this like this old like writing straight, writing neat kind of mold. Like junk journaling and getting more creative with your journals. That's really what I'm more into now. I also save like letters and postcards in here. It really makes this journal thick, but I don't really have a better place to put them for now. So I just like putting them in here. So yeah, that's my diary. It only has a few pages left. I'm so excited for this to be done. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep as many things in here as I did in here because I don't know if the binding is going to hold if I am sticking stuff on every single page. Going back to the documenting topic, the main purpose of these journals, these diaries, is going to be for documenting things as usual. So photos, writing recountings of experiences, things like that. And the cherry on top, this little thing, I'm going to Vietnam for 2 weeks with my partner's family. I cannot keep my diary with me all the time, and even this might be a little too big to keep with me all the time. So instead, I'm actually going to bring this little notebook with me for my Vietnam trip. This could be my little Vietnam journal. I think I'm still gonna bring my everyday planner with me to help offload information, maybe at night or in the morning, I'm not really sure. I'm still gonna have my offloading notebook here, right, to write down anything that I'm thinking or feeling. But this can also be a little travel journal. So I can write down summaries of the day, where we're going, what we're gonna do. Maybe I can put stickers in here, I'm not sure yet. So this will be a journal to bring along with me so that I don't have to carry this giant freaking thing along with me. Speaking of junk journals though, honorable mention to this junk journal that I started in January. I was so inspired. I even made this page at the beginning, and then I think in March I just stopped. I cut out all of the pages here because it just had too many pages that I wasn't using. I will repurpose the pages somewhere else. But yeah, this is my junk journal with a very brief lifespan of January to March 2024. It's been absorbed into this. So that's it for this video. Those are the planners and journals I've got for offloading versus documenting. If you watched till the end of this video, you get brownie points, all the brownie points, all the gold stars. Honestly, I'm really curious why you stayed through the whole thing. Journal nerds, stationery nerds, unite, we're all in this together, right? I'm curious to hear what your systems will be like for the next year. If you've got a lot of notebooks that you're bouncing around through, or if you only stick with one. That's all I got for today. Thanks for watching. Bye.